Hey, good evening. This is Chief Meteorologist Alex Kirchner, the 13 Weather Authority. We are live here on our news app on our website, WREX.com. You can also find us on our YouTube page. We're live there too. And then we also are live on the 13 WREX Facebook page. So if you have any questions or comments, I will be live monitoring the live comments here, and I'll try to respond to them or answer your questions as quickly as I can. This is all ahead of a threat for severe storms as we go into tomorrow, mainly during the afternoon hours. It's kind of a broad window, but I'll explain why we could have multiple rounds of storms as we get into tomorrow. This would be for all threats in play, so just make sure that you're staying weather aware all throughout the day tomorrow. We'll have updates tonight at 10. We'll have updates with meteorologist Claudia Olick in the morning, and then throughout the course of Friday as we watch those storms arrive, we'll be providing you those live updates as frequently as possible as those severe storms may be shifting towards us. So here is the basic breakdown of what we're seeing for tomorrow. This is a 2 out of 5 risk for severe weather. As of Tuesday, just the other day, we were up to a 3 to 4. This is a little lower than that, and that's because there may be more scattered severe weather. It's not going to necessarily be as widespread, and the impacts look to be just a little lower, but still, even 60-mile-an-hour gusts, severe wind gusts, that can pack a punch. We saw what happened in spots like Freeport, across some sections of Rockford, where there were plenty of tree branches and things blown down. So those winds, even though they might not be quite as high as where they were on Tuesday, there still could be some issues with that. Of course, we want to make sure that you're staying safe and out of the way as those storms may be coming in. So this is for all of southern Wisconsin and most of Illinois. So if you are traveling tomorrow, it's not like this is just kind of localized within our little state line area. This may be a broad Midwest kind of threat. So you're going to want to be extra careful as you go throughout the course of your day that you don't run into any additional severe weather elsewhere. So we're going to look for where those storms are right now. You can see that they're just getting going across Nebraska and South Dakota. They're going to race across Minnesota, Iowa tonight, be into our neck of the woods by early tomorrow afternoon. So they're not necessarily as organized just yet, but what we're going to see happen is this is really going to blow up into a complex of thunderstorms. So it's a nice big grouping that can kind of help fuel itself as it races across the Midwest as of tonight. So we've got some time still before those arrive. Here's future track starting off Friday morning. We're dry around sunrise, may even see some sunshine. Then over the course of the morning, we get to about 11 o'clock. Here comes that first wave of storms out of that complex of thunderstorm activity. And you can see here on Future Track that we do have on the leading edge here some stronger to severe storms. Note it's not widespread across the whole line, but again, we got these pockets of severe weather we may have to watch out for. And in general, that's a lot of rain and a lot of wind heading at you. So even if you don't see severe weather, you may not want to be outdoors during it or driving during it. So be aware that thunderstorms are looking pretty likely tomorrow. It's not going to be a fun driving experience, and you definitely don't want to be outside for it. What may happen, though, is you can see Future Track has that kind of fizzling out the farther east it works, and that muddies the water a little bit, because if this all came through at once, it would kind of use up the atmosphere's energy, settle things down for the remainder of the day, and then we're fairly quiet from there. So what may happen here is that because these storms don't punch through and get rid of all of that energy across all areas, we may get some redevelopment in the afternoon. You can see throughout the afternoon here, we clear out. We do have some sunshine that may help recharge things. So when the secondary line of storms comes through in the afternoon, it may bump things back up for us. So this right now at least broadens the window a little where it may not be just contained to right around lunchtime. There could be a second surge of storms later on in the afternoon. So I think for the whole afternoon, be ready for intense thunderstorm activity. We'll kind of have to see again just how that complex is able to make its way into the region. Again, it's still over Nebraska and South Dakota, so we've got many, many hours to see how this evolves before it works into our backyard. But that is a scenario that could play out here where we get just a couple rounds of strong thunderstorms, but then we're done. We go into Friday evening, fairly quiet and dry. Once that all exits, may have a stray shower quick as a cold front comes through, but overall that would be a lot weaker because, again, these multiple rounds of earlier thunderstorms kind of use up whatever fuel there is in the atmosphere. So in general, I want you to be ready for severe weather basically during the early half of the afternoon. We get deeper in the afternoon, less likely to get severe weather, but we can't completely rule out a quick pop-up shower or storm or two. So that main window looks to be right in the late morning to at least the middle of the afternoon. You are looking at all severe weather hazards in play, so damaging wind gusts, brief tornadoes, large hail, plenty of downpours and lightning too, so even if you don't see severe weather, you're not going to want to be outside for all of that. So, like Lori mentions here, can never count out rain for Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, it is extremely rare for us to get a clean sweep here where we have dry weather every single day. So if you are traveling tomorrow, early morning should be fine. It's the late morning to early afternoon where we have that main window for strong thunderstorms, and then the deeper we go, might be a little more isolated to spotty, so those road conditions hopefully improve later on in the day. It's kind of right in the middle of the day. You're going to have to watch out for that potential for some strong thunderstorm activity. So what can you do ahead of all this? You probably did all this already on Tuesday. May have to do it again, where it's, all right, the ways I get my weather alerts, they're all set to go. You're staying weather aware. You're keeping up to speed on the forecast. Definitely do so tomorrow. Have the 13 Weather Authority app handy. It'll not only alert you about any kind of watches, warnings, that kind of thing, but it's even got just this awesome radar that you can zoom around in and keep track of the storms as they get closer towards us. And then it's great for when you're on the go. You know, if you're traveling tomorrow, keep pulling that radar up, keep checking it, kind of see where those severe weather alerts are, see where the storms are, do your best to kind of avoid them. And then, you know, maybe you didn't have to use it the other night. We didn't have widespread severe weather. There were some pretty pockets of pretty intense thunderstorm winds like Lena, like Freeport. There are even some pretty strong wind gusts into Rockford too. But some of you, like in Belvedere, in DeKalb, you really didn't see much of anything out of those storms. You may want to review your safety plan and get that ready just in case for tomorrow. And then charge up your devices too. Make sure those are charged up, ready to go in case you lose power. So looking here, and Melissa kind of chiming in here, definitely thinking about it. Lori mentioned it. Yeah. Memorial Day weekend, you just can't escape the rain. I've actually got another update on that in just a second here, but it does seem like at least one of those days has showers and storms with it, so I'm not surprised that we're getting something to come through. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that we don't see multiple rounds of severe weather over the holiday weekend, but it's been hot, it's been humid many, many times this spring. It's been feeling like summer since end of February at times, so it's not a big surprise that we are getting severe weather a little more often over the course of this spring season. Now, Marlene's wondering about flood warnings. I don't necessarily see them as a risk for tomorrow. I think these storms are going to be fairly progressive, which means they're going to hit hard but then leave quickly. So we're not going to see them drop so much rain and then stall where they're producing a lot of heavy rainfall. That may be more of a Sunday threat. So if you are sticking around for the holiday weekend, keep an eye on this. Have soggy weather ahead for Sunday. I don't think it's going to rain the whole day, but we could get a couple rounds of showers and storms, and there may be some pockets of heavy rainfall. The way this is all setting up, there could be a slightly higher risk for some flooding rain at times just because those storms look to be a lot slower moving. It's a much larger, more robust weather system. And then south of I-88, that's where we do right now have a slight chance for severe weather. So depending on your location, you could end up seeing some severe weather on Sunday too. So keep an eye out for this as we get into the end of the weekend. But first up, of course, we have to watch out for Friday, especially during the afternoon. Corinne's wondering here, winds like the other night. That is some of the severe threats that we are facing. I don't think we will necessarily face the 70, 80, 90 mile an hour gusts that some spots in Joe Davis and Stevenson counties saw. This will be more on the severe end, still around 60 miles per hour, but not those more considerable wind threats. So the answer is kind of yes and no. We've got the severe wind threat, but it may not be that high-end threat that some spots saw just the other night. Still, 60 mile an hour wind gusts can make a mess of things. They can knock over tree branches. They can interfere with power lines. I know that I still have to clean up my backyard. I've got a lot of leaves down, a lot of twigs down, and some decent sized branches that snapped off on some of the trees. So it might be a little bit more like that, where we're not seeing whole trees uprooted, but you still want to be weather aware. And we can't rule out that tornado threat too. There might be some brief tornadoes if this tracks right across this area. But keep in mind, it may be a couple storms across this whole vicinity rather than just kind of some localized threats for us. So that's what we're watching out for as we get into tomorrow afternoon. If you're just joining us, again, we are live here on our app, on our website, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So like we saw the other night, if you happen to lose power, you're on the go, you still got ways to stream us in case we're in severe weather mode. So, or you want forecast information like this too. So keep these little avenues in mind when we get to tomorrow and over the weekend, if we do have to talk about severe weather or anytime there's any kind of interesting weather around our backyard. So if you're just jumping on, 13 WREX Facebook page. We're live there too, keeping an eye on some questions and comments. Got a few people joining us as of right now. It looks like about 76 people or so on the live stream currently. So yeah, share with your friends. Let us know if you're wondering anything, if you got any questions about the forecast for the next 24 hours or so. So we're going to look where those storms are right now. You can see that they are beginning to organize across Nebraska. That's where they're coming from, and they will eventually be into our backyard by the time we get to very late in the morning. You can see here approaching 11 o'clock. This is when that complex of thunderstorms may push into our backyard. As a result, could get some severe weather with that round into the very early afternoon, but you can see Future Track kind of hinting here this may fizzle a little bit. So then the question is, how much sunshine do we get in behind us? So that's where this may kind of make the forecast just a little murky. We have to see just what that morning or that very late morning round of storms does, because if it uses up a ton of energy out of the atmosphere, this second round of storms doesn't do much. But if we get that nice burst of sunshine, some heat working into the afternoon, that secondary line of storms has some fuel to work with. So that's when we could see possibly another surge of severe weather during the late afternoon. After that, we should be dry and clear of everything. So there may just be some storms in the afternoon, and that is about it if you're making your Friday plans, but you're still going to want to be ready for all of this. All hazards in play, downpours and lightning too, roughly between 11 and 4 tomorrow. Then after that, can't completely rule out a quick isolated shower or storm. Those likely won't be severe. Claudia is wondering here, driving to Des Plaines as we go into tomorrow. So what time will the storms hit there? That is a good question. Let me pull that up just for a second here for you. All right, so for you, I'll go back to Future Track here. If you're heading into like the Chicago suburbs and all that tomorrow, or maybe into Indiana, farther south, you can see that those early storms kind of miss you some. So anything that's coming in later might likely get into those spots later in the evening. So we're talking about 6 to 7 more on this end of Illinois. So hopefully that helps answer that question. And then I didn't zoom out far enough, but if there's anybody heading into Wisconsin, we will, again, go back to Future Track. It's roughly the same timing because this is coming in from west to east. So if you're trying to head north, you might run into some storms by late morning, and then they're still going to stick around into the early afternoon. And it's a little hard to see here, but you can see like Madison has roughly the same timing as the Rockford area. So look for potentially busy weather on that end of the Midwest too. Brandon's wondering, is this going to be bad? So there is a risk for severe weather. It doesn't line up as high as it did the other night on Tuesday, where we had a 3 to 4 out of 5, and that was for some pockets of pretty intense wind gusts. I know we didn't get the tornado threats, thankfully, but there were, I think, a half a dozen tornadoes in Wisconsin and many, many across Iowa. Northern Illinois lucked out in some ways, but still got some wind gusts between 60 to 90 miles per hour. So, of course, it's nothing to sneeze at, but avoided the tornado threat. As we go into tomorrow, the high-end wind gusts don't look to be as bad, but we still could see wind gusts at about 60 miles per hour. That is enough to damage some trees and power lines and things, so you're going to want to stay aware on these storms. Brief tornadoes possible and hail possible. So hopefully that answers that question. Again, I think it's going to be The ceiling for these storms looks to be lower compared to the other night, but we still could have about the same floor here when it comes to our impacts with severe weather. And it would be a bit scattered like we saw the other night too. I know some of you didn't end up getting much for any kind of thunderstorm activity. Might be similar here where you may avoid the severe weather, but you're still going to get some rain, some wind, some lightning, some downpours at times as this sweeps on through. Lauren's wondering here, will the storm threat level change from a 2 to a 3? I think it's possible, but it's one of those situations where it may take until tomorrow morning before we start to see that kind of switch, because I'm sure what the Weather Service is going to do, just like all of us meteorologists, we're going to look to see how the storms evolve. We're going to get more data in. We're going to take more readings and things and then adjust the forecast from there. So that's where I wouldn't be terribly surprised if it got bumped up by tomorrow morning, but it's one of those where we have to wait till those storms get a lot closer before we make that kind of adjustment. And some of that comes down to not only where the storms track through, but if we get that kind of recharge in the afternoon. So I think that's what may help determine whether that threat level goes up or down or not. So that's kind of where things sit as of right now. And that's why I do overall agree with this assessment where we're at about a 2 out of 5, and that we're not necessarily going to get severe weather stretching all the way across our area like we did the other night. It's not going to be very intense in certain pockets, but there still is going to be some scattered thunderstorm activity that's going to bring those threats. And it's one of those, you kind of have to wait for a little more information to come in, a little more data to come in to make that determine if it goes up or not. Let's see. Walter mentioning here, Tuesday, a lot of trees down, almost no rain. We'll have to kind of see what happens as we get into tomorrow. And that's one thing I noticed in my backyard. I was looking at my different rain gauges, and it's a lot of little sticks and twigs and things to clean up, but I would have appreciated at least some rain with it, and I don't think we got much of anything, or at least it was very, very a tiny amount of rainfall. So I'm hoping that, best case scenario, just personally, we get some wind and rain and we get the benefit of the rainfall, but we don't see as much for severe weather. We'll kind of have to see how that all plays out as we go throughout the next 24 hours or so. So Tim's wondering here, is this going to be as bad as Tuesday? I think the ceiling is lower for those severe threats, but the floor is about the same. So 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, brief tornadoes, large hail, they're all possible, but I don't think we're going to see necessarily some of those higher-end threats like we did the other night where it was 70, 80, 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So this may be more in the 60-ish range, still enough to, mess up some trees, some power lines and things like that in little pockets, but it's not going to be that higher-end wind threat that we saw just the other night. So Will's wondering here what time of those storms hit the Sycamore area tomorrow. So we'll see what the storms are right now, and then we'll get you over to Future Track. They're still over Nebraska and South Dakota right now. They're coming through late overnight in some of those spots. Here's Future Track. So for tomorrow morning, I don't think we'll get severe weather, or that threat at least for severe weather, into the area until 11 o'clock at the earliest. It's going to move from west to east, so spots like Sycamore, Belvedere, you may not see much of anything until about 12:30, 1 o'clock. That is, if that first round fizzles out some. So be ready for some storms right at about noon. So that's kind of your first window here. Second window then, if we can recharge enough, could be coming through by about 3 to 4 in the afternoon. You can see that here we are at about 4:30. Possibly another line of intense thunderstorm activity. So spots like Sycamore might not be until closer to 5. And then we're done after that from the looks of it. So that hopefully gives you some general timing here. I think overall we are looking at either 1 to 2 rounds of storms between 11 at the earliest and 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the latest. And again, it might be 11 farther to the west, closer to noon as you get near I-39. And then we'll kind of see how that all evolves from there. So Sky's wondering, a little sad about potentially City Market getting rained on, and I have been keeping a very close eye on that, and that's where the timing of this is all key. I think a lot of those stronger storms should be out by the time City Market would start. That said, it may not be fun for the vendors to set up, so we'll kind of have to keep an eye on that. And then, later on in the evening, there might be a spotty pop-up shower or storm or two that could end up affecting things like outdoor events like City Market. That said, it looks to be a lot briefer, so maybe it's a quick little rain and that's it. I know there's the pavilion, I know there's the indoor market, so people can kind of get out of that rain somewhat, but my best advice is pull up the 13 Weather Authority app, look at the radar before you go down to things like City Market. Again, the fingers crossed here, these strong storms are already out by that point, can still have our outdoor festivities because it is a holiday weekend. You want to go to things like City Market, you want to maybe kick back on your deck or your patio, fire up the grill, that kind of stuff. You want to get outdoors with the unofficial start of summer coming. So the hope here is that a lot of those stronger storms are out in time for things like outdoor events going into tomorrow evening. And that's rough timing right now. It's, optimistically, this window is already closed for any kind of strong storms towards the end of all of this. And then we're just watching out for any kind of spotty rain that may pop up later on into those evening hours. So hopefully that helps. We will be keeping you up to speed over the next 24 hours with all of this. So tune in about 40 minutes for 13 News at 10. We'll be looking not just at this, but potential rounds coming up on Sunday. We'll give you the whole weekend forecast. And then tomorrow morning, check in with meteorologist Claudia Olick. She'll get you up to speed on watching those storms come in, the updated timing, and throughout the afternoon, it'll be a team effort. We'll be keeping up to speed on just as those storms roll through, how they're looking. So stay with us for additional coverage over the next 24 hours. Thanks for joining us here, and have a great rest of your night.